what are the other things that we see as people coming in who have tax problems, whether it's the IRS or the Georgia Department of Revenue. And right off the bat, they're terrified, because not only do they have a creditor, their creditor is the government, and the government has a lot more power than a typical creditor, If they want to levy against you or if they want to garnish you, they don't have to go out and get a judgment lien. They can just do it, okay? So people are already scared. They're very intimidated, What they don't realize is that the bankruptcy code actually gives them a lot of power over dealing with tax debt. So there's, a couple things that we do first off when somebody walks in the door with a tax problem. I mean, the first thing that I typically do is get tax transcripts, contact the IRS, see what the IRS actually says they owe. And, the IRS actually keeps, logs of, the contact that they've had, the collection efforts that they've had that's coded. So you really need, a qualified, experienced professional who's used to dealing with those kind of IRS problems to take a look at those transcripts and give you an idea of what they say. Now, when you're dealing with tax debt, you really want to look at the kind of tax debt, because there's actually 4 categories of tax debt that's out there, and all of them, can be dealt with in different ways. If you have tax debt that's, dischargeable, you might want to file a 7 and just wipe it out if it meets all the qualifications for discharge. The average client who's coming in isn't going to be that fortunate. So what they're probably thinking of is dealing with their tax claims in terms of a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Fortunately, Chapter 13 gives us a lot of power over tax, claims. The first thing that you want to do is you want to file that Chapter 13 because it's going to put that automatic stay in effect, which is going to stop those collection actions. It's going to stop that levy, okay, which you want to do because you don't want the IRS or Georgia Department of Revenue grabbing all the money out of your bank account. You don't want them garnishing your check and grabbing your pay, okay? So you want to stop that levy. You also want to stop them from filing a lien, which the bankruptcy will do, okay? You don't want that judgment lien out there because 1, it ruins your credit score, and 2, it's going to draw interest until it's paid. And, it also gives them other options in terms of collection, okay? So what do you actually do with the debt? Now, some tax debt actually qualifies for discharge, There's several steps, that it has to meet in order to be dischargeable, but some tax debt can be old enough, can meet the requirements to just be wiped out entirely. It's just like a credit card, okay? You have some tax debt that's priority tax debt, which means it's tax debt that, well, we do have to repay. But what we're doing in Chapter 13 is we're trying to repay it under more favorable terms. We're proposing to pay it at 0% interest, and again, through a Chapter 13 plan, you can propose to pay it over 3 or 4 or 5 years in order to stretch it out long enough so that it's a payment you can afford to make. And it's at 0%, and of course it stops usually those late fees and the penalties and the interest and those things from accruing on you, depending on the kind of tax debt that it is, The other thing that you see out there is, quite often people come in and there is a tax lien in place, especially with, the Georgia Department of Revenue, And what you want to do is, through Chapter 13 is attack that tax lien, You can actually value a tax lien or, what's sometimes called lien strip a tax lien, which is a fancy way of saying that you're trying to limit the value of that tax lien, They may have a tax lien against you for $30,000, okay? But you may only have $1,000 worth of assets, okay? Well, you want to limit how much they get. You want to limit the value of that tax lien in order to try to save some money, The biggest thing that I can recommend for folks, if you do have some sort of tax problem, personal income taxes, or maybe you had a business that failed, is that you come in and that you talk to someone that deals with tax debt on a regular basis, because those issues are very complex. There are, several different categories of tax debt. There's several different, key points that you have to make in order to find out what category of tax debt that is, whether it can be wiped out or not. So you really want to deal with a qualified professional who handles those kind of cases on a regular basis, which we do. And of course, we do free consultations. So it doesn't cost you anything to come in and talk to somebody and get it, an opinion as to the kind of tax debt that you have and how it might be dealt with.